This is the most stupid exercise I've ever seen. Just kidding, I did the same thing. Mind you, it wasn't off the same height box, but it was still a pretty high box. It was 60 inches in the air. What we're doing here is an exercise called depth jumps, and they were popularized by this dude. He was really smart. He's a Russian high jump coach named Verkhoshansky, and he's actually the father of plyometrics. And depth jumps were his favorite plyometrics of choice, because you can overload them, and overload is how adaptations happen when you exercise. Specifically, we're using gravity to overload the depth jump. The higher the box, the more time gravity has to act on your body, and the higher the eccentric forces are going to be when your feet hit the ground. Guess where else there are extremely high eccentric forces? When your plant leg hits the ground, whether you're jumping off 1 foot or 2 feet. Now, there are a few different ways of using depth jumps. You can focus on minimizing ground contact time, which this is actually how Yuri used them. He used something called the shock method, and for something to be considered a shock plyometric, the ground contact time has to be under 200 milliseconds. This is more specific for sprinting and 1 foot jumping because the ground contact times are so low. Something very important to note, however, is that your intent when you jump has to be very, very high. Now, the variation that I used and that we saw at the beginning of the video was using a very high box. And the reason we use such a high box is because I jump high as shit. And in order for me to experience any kind of overload on a depth jump, especially off the 2 legs, while at the same time forcing my legs to undergo the same range of motion I see in a 2 foot jump, I have to step off a very high box. Now, on the other hand, the Japanese high jumper that we watched at the beginning of the video, you see he's landing very, very stiffly. This is because he's a 1 footer, and specifically with the high jump, the approach speeds are super high, and you need to be extremely stiff with your takeoff leg in order to transfer all that horizontal speed into vertical velocity. So how can you apply this to your training? First, ask yourself, what kind of jumper are you? Are you a 1 footer? Are you a 2 footer? Are you using a lot of speed? Are you not using a lot of speed on your approach? What ranges of motion are you getting on your jump? Then pick the depth jump strategy that best mimics your jumping style that also allows you to overload the eccentric portion of the jump the most effectively.